All right, welcome to Who's Gonna Fill Their Shoes. This is Josh,
As it was.
and today we're continuing our little mini series here on Gary Stewart, and we're gonna be talking about your place or mine.
Your place or mine? Hmm, it's a good
Did,
one.
did you know this one much before, was?
Uh, a little. I've had it for a while. I've had the vinyl copy for a while, and I listened to it a handful of times when I bought it, but got a lot more familiar with it this week, and I'm glad that I did. What about you?
Yeah, I knew it fairly well. I mean, there's a few songs we'll talk about I really knew. A couple I didn't know as well, but man, it's been a joy to listen to it.
Yeah, it really has. Yeah, I mean, I would say at least one of these songs is kind of in the upper echelon of Gary songs. Now I like all the songs on this album, but I just mean I think it's one of the more well-known ones for many reasons. But um, yeah, it was. It's a really fun record, I think, as we'll get into here.
Oh yeah. And so, just some context, I guess around this time, Gary had been playing with the band Rockfish that had Boogie Bob Melton in it. They're mostly playing honky tonks. It says in Jimmy McDonough's book, I'm from the honky tonks that we've been using as a reference for a lot of this that you need to buy if you haven't already. It's a great read. But Gary told Leon Black, I love for people to dance at my shows. It shows that you're digging it if you're out scooting around the floor. And during this time of touring with Rockfish, I also had Grandall Stewart, who was driving around the band in a Winnebago. And Wes, you had an eventful day yesterday. What did you do?
Yeah, I got to go to the Country Music Hall of Fame, where Jimmy McDonough, Shannon Stewart, Terry Porter, and Boogie Bob Melton himself were all there in the audience talking about Jimmy's book. And I'd have to go look again. RJ, I believe was his first name. I can't remember his last name, who was curating the event and sort of leading the Q&A. It was really special, really cool. It was my first time visiting the Country Music Hall of Fame. And thankfully, lots of people over and over got to say in the Country Music Hall of Fame that Gary should be included in it. And so it's kind of like going to the Supreme Court of country music and making your case, you know? So let's hope that that happens. But it was super cool to hear the stories, and some of them were in the book, but you can't really beat hearing it from like the real people who experienced it. So that was really special. And yeah, I got a chance to say a quick hi to Chris Campion, who also helped put out the book, and that was cool too because I think we talked about this a little bit, but the book is quite long, and a lot of people weren't going to put it out, and thank God somebody had the right sense to do it because it's Shannon mentioned that she said in her own words, like, I'm not sure I had read a book all the way through, and she said, and I read this book all the way through in like 4 or 5 days. So it just tells you, I think you and I had the same experience for a book that has a lot of pages. You would never know it. It's just so engaging. So yeah, it was really special to see that.
It's 510 pages. It probably is the longest book I've read, if I'm being honest. And yeah, I read it in like 3 days, maybe two. I couldn't put it down. I would have read it in one if I had a day where I just had nothing.
Yeah, yeah, same. Well, and there were some really, really good questions that were asked. Boogie Bob Melton talked about his time in the Phoenix and sort of how that band came to be. And I guess Gary had said to Jimmy that he felt that was the best he ever sounded, and Bob said the same thing. That he said he doesn't know of any time that they were recorded, but that was just fantastic sounding, and it was just cool. I mean, there was some more perspective on that. It was difficult at times too. The one of the questions was just to Shannon about, was it difficult to read this book? And of course it was, I think she said as much, that she went through a whole lot, losing, a lot of members of her family, her brother and her mother and her father. And I mean, we've talked about this book as as enjoyable as some of the stories are. It's also challenging in the sense that it's quite sad at parts, and so I think that got talked about a lot too. And yeah, there were a lot of also, moments of humor too, just stories about one in particular. We don't have to go into too much more after this, but I got to at least tell this one. I told you about this where Terry Porter had said that post 9/11, after security got a lot more intense at the airports, he was making sure to always check that they were taking anything in there, any kind of contraband or anything like that. And he said he would do a pat down on Gary to make sure Gary didn't have anything. And I guess one time they were going through, he did the pat down. He was off, doing his own business, and then he sees Gary getting a full body pat down. And I guess he rushes over, and he said that turns out Gary had stolen all these knobs off the off the furniture in the motel they were staying at just because he liked them. And so the police are like, what are these things in this guy's pocket here? And Gary, I guess, was just sort of like, he said he was like a deer in headlights, just sort of standing there and not knowing what to do. And then Terry came up and said, "Oh, those are just our knobs. We changed off the equipment. He wanted some new ones, so we changed them up." I guess they let him go.
What was he gonna do with a bunch of knobs?
There's no telling. They said that's what something they were saying is that when he traveled, he loved thrifting, and I thought you would appreciate this, that he loved going to like thrift stores and antique shops so much that they said when he was on the bus or car, they had to keep him away from the window because if he saw any place, he'd want to stop immediately and go search like everything, like nook and cranny to try to find things. So I guess he just always liked taking things, and they said just as equally, he gave away a lot of things too. So well, I thought that was kind of fascinating.
Yeah, the book talks that he would just give away guitars that were like priceless to people, like vintage guitars that are probably worth like $50,000 now. He would just hand to someone, "You like this? You've played guitar here." And it says, yeah,
Yeah.
he had a. I think Shannon still has a lot of it together, and because his house, and he had a big collection of vintage stuff and art and like furniture and things. And I know he collected vintage clothes, and I mean, apparently had a huge collection of vintage guitars and amps at one time. I think he gave a lot of it away, but or he sold a lot.
Though they also said he gave at one point he had given a pill bottle that was being used as a slide by Dwayne Allman. He gave that, this is what Terry Porter said. He gave it to Terry Porter's son to use as a way to kind of make sure it kept getting carried on. And then, unfortunately, Terry Porter shared that his son passed away in an accident, and then ultimately he ended up giving it to Ray Wiley Hubbard's son. And so Ray Wiley Hubbard's, I guess, has that on his hand. I saw a post from last year. I don't know how I found this. I was Googling it, but um, actually says he's still got a quercetin bottle that came in a pill bottle. And on that pill bottle is written in a Sharpie, Dwayne Allman gave me this, Gary Stewart.
Yeah, I actually have heard that. That's crazy. I mean, imagine owning that. That would be my prized possession. I think one of the funny thing I know it talked about too. Yeah, that's another thing I relate to Gary with his vintage collecting. He also had like 4,000 records. Shannon said, and like I mean that's how him and Jimmy got connected. He told
Yeah.
Jimmy to find some rare record that he didn't think Jimmy could find, and Jimmy found it really fast and delivered it to him, and that was their first meeting. But I one of the funny things I saw that someone had got of Gary's was I don't was it Porter? I can't remember the book now, but he got his false teeth that he had, and there's that story
Yes.
you're reminding me of. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was. Well, I don't know if I can't remember if they told the whole thing in the book or not, but yeah, basically they were keeping it. Terry Porter said they were keeping his false teeth in a Tupperware container. And he said normally he would go in and recheck the hotel room and look for everything. And somehow or another, Gary went back in there and placed only that down and left it. And they realized it about 200 miles away. And I guess he said, "Well, let me try to figure something out." So because it was around the holidays, apparently around Christmas, and they really wanted to play this place for this guy, and he made some fake teeth out of duct tape and called them Buddy Holly teeth, I guess. And somehow or another, they played the show, but he said the one thing he wasn't going to be able to pull off was Blue Christmas. Um, so they marked that off the set list. And I guess from what Terry Porter said, there were these girls in the front holding up signs with like song requests. Well, somehow the owner came up and found Terry Porter and said, if y'all play, my wife wants to hear one song tonight. She wants to hear Blue Christmas. And if y'all play it, we'll give you an extra $1,000. So apparently he went up to those girls in the front. He marked off he had them mark it out what they had originally requested, and he wrote in Blue Christmas in Sharpie. And then when Gary saw those signs, he said, "Come on up here, let me see what you want to play." So they ended up having to play it anyway.
Yeah, he wanted to keep the false teeth because Gary lost them all the time, and he wanted to keep a hold of them, is what he said, so they wouldn't get lost.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm obviously retelling these stories, but there's nothing like. I'm sure there's some videos. I think people were videoing a lot of that event, and I know it was just the first of many they're going to do, but yeah, it was really good to hear him in that way. And um, I mean, the other thing that came up, I think I told you about the last thing I'll mention about that event because there's going to be a lot more of them, and I want people to dig in and be surprised by it, and hopefully people can go and see it because it's really special, but. I guess Terry Porter said he was working in like a wrecking yard when Gary came and found him. And the way he described the interview, Gary came and said, "Well, son, what do you know about country music?" And he said, "Nothing." And he goes, "You're hired."
Oh man. I'm glad it's a beautiful way to remember Gary because, like you said, the book is beautiful. It's really funny at times, but and so great. But there's parts where I had to put the book down, and it's pretty sad in parts. So
Yeah.
you got to remember, the pain that people went through, and it shows, I mean, knowing about that really explains a lot how Gary could sing the things he sang and the way he sang, but it's good to remember a lot of the good moments too and the music that he left.
Yeah, I think everybody on that stage indicated that what we know to be true is, or what we've heard is that, I mean, Jimmy said, I've seen a lot of shows. I think he said, I've seen a few, being a little coy about it. But that, Gary was by far the most electric performer he ever saw. And Bob Melton said he's played with a ton of people and said no one ever put on a performance like Gary did. So, and yeah, I mean, Shannon said the same thing and Terry as well. I mean, every one of them spoke so highly of who he was as a performer. And, um, yeah, his legacy seems to be growing ever more with the release of this book and what they're doing. And it's just a great time. It's a good time to be a Gary Stewart fan. I don't know what else to say about it other than that.
Yeah, and I mean, the book has some hard stuff in it, and Gary definitely had flaws, but it seemed like he was reflective on stuff and didn't want to succumb to that. And his story is oddly similar to Elvis's in a way, and which is interesting because I know he loved Elvis, and I think even Jimmy, I think I read somewhere recent that he just said he's realized how kind Gary actually was, even despite everything. Like, and it seems that way. Gary was like a really kind and like sweet person. Obviously,
Yeah.
substance can drown that in a lot of ways, but it seems like even through that, he was still like a really sweet person. And I could even just hearing stories, I feel like I can just see that about someone. And I don't know, he's a Kentuckian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jimmy talked about that too and just said the person running the Q&A asked Jimmy, well, he's from Kentucky, he's from Letcher County. What do you have to say about that? And, And Jimmy just said he was extremely proud of being from Kentucky. And, I was grinning from ear to ear. And my wife, Sonia looked over at me and she knew I'd be happy about that, that Gary was a proud Kentuckian and I guess would tell anybody he saw about that essentially, even though, he spent a lot of time away from it later in life. It's still where he was from, and we can relate to that, you and I. So that meant a lot to me too. I mean, that's not wholly why we love Gary Stewart, but it sure helps.
Yeah, it even talks in the book later on in the book when he got the mile marker on the Kentucky highway. That was like the biggest accomplishment of his career for him. He like couldn't believe it, and it just shows how much that meant to him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, he was never really, it seems, chasing fame, and so I think something like that seemingly would have meant the world to him compared to like a number one hit or something like that.
Yeah, and you can hear in a lot of the songs he sang they were Kentucky influence and about Kentucky, and not a lot about Florida. I think he obviously loved Florida, but he knew Kentucky was his roots and his blood. That's when you're from there, it's a different thing. But anyways, that's not as important to this. You're talking about the Phoenix, and that kind of takes us into this album. The Phoenix, I think, it was around 1975, and it was about the same time as Out of Hand came out, and they were. Yeah, it says they were playing a lot of covers and not even a lot of Gary originals, but they were apparently just Allman Brothers and just like yeah, it sounded like they were just a killer band. But that was right around before Out of Hand came out, so that took off, and I think I don't whatever reason they fell apart, and that should be right about the time Rockfish became Gary's touring band. And there was one story I found in Jimmy's book that was really funny and kind of related to where I'm at now. And it said when they were on tour, once the band was crossing the Continental Divide in Utah with Gary's brother Gerald, then drummer in the band, along for the ride. When Gary unwisely took the wheel, Gerald was screaming, "Quit driving like a maniac, Gary. You're about to fall out of bed," recalled Rockfish sound engineer Ron Radar Griffith. And suddenly it smoothed out, prompting Gerald to say, "That's more like it." Then Chris Cassis, guitar player in the band, stuck his head out of the window of the tilting vehicle and said, "No, fuckers, we're midair." And somehow they lived.
Oh man.
That was one of my favorite stories.
That's good. Yeah, same. I remember that reading that in the book and just thinking, oh my God. But I love the somehow they lived ending of that
Yeah.
little quote
It
too.
sounds like Gary actually didn't drive very often. And when he did, it was I think even Jimmy maybe rode with him one time. It sounds like it was pretty chaotic and terrifying, which is funny. Probably if he didn't really drive very much either.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
But so during this time of touring, talked about in the book, Gary was kind of in an open relationship with Mary Lou, and his sometimes his flings became a little too serious, and it kind of around this time there were some marital issues which prompted divorce proceedings in 1977. And it says in the book, even at times the relationship was pretty rocky. He told Jimmy, "I love my family as much as my music," which I guess Gary told Jimmy quite a bit, and they were able to reconcile. But it kind of makes sense with his album, maybe the mood and some of the songs we'll talk about that is what was going on at the time. And so Your Place or Mine came out in the spring of 1977. So we have another album, 75, 76, now 77. And some places say it came out March 21st, but there's not a definitive date of the now time when it actually came out. And it was recorded over a year beginning in February of 76, actually. So right after Stepping Out came out. And most of it was in Nashville. Roy Day went to California to have Nicolette Larson and Emmylou Harris overdub vocals on it. And the album actually reached number 17 on the US country charts.
I'm not too surprised by that, and we'll talk about this as we get into the songs, but this was sort of smack dab in the middle of like the explosion of outlaw country, and it's very much an outlaw sounding record. and I feel like it would fit right in with sort of what was going on in country music at the time. So, um, was that mm, what was that more successful than Out of Hand as a record?
No, it was not.
Okay, so that was still the most successful, yeah. I mean, I knew that obviously that spawned a number one, so that's always going to do you some favors.
Yeah, it wasn't as popular as Out of Hand. I mean, on the charts, but it was still pretty up there for Gary, and you know, followed his string of hits he had of records.
Yep, yep. Pretty good credits on this one too. I mean, you mentioned the background vocals there. You got Emmylou Harris and Nicolette Larson, but you also got Rodney Crowell on some of the songs, and now there's a certain fella that's playing some harmonica that I believe we've heard of.
Yeah, you talked about the credits. We got Mickey Raphael's on this one on harmonica, and Bobby Thompson on banjo. We had Robert Ray, Joe Zinnia, and Mike Leach on bass. Josh Graves again on dobro. Jerry Kerrigan, Jim Isbell, Carl Himmel, Kenneth Buttery, and Roger Clark on drums. So quite a bit of drummers on there. On electric guitar, we had Del Sellers again, Larry Byram, Mac Gaden, Pete Carr, and Reggie Young again. Keyboards, we had Bobby Wood, Herbert Ivy, David Briggs, and Gary Stewart. Buck White on mandolin, and then rhythm guitar, Chip Young, Harold Bradley, Ray Edenton, and Jerry Shook, and steel guitar, Leo LeBlanc, Pete Drake, and Weldon Merrick is on here as well.
Now,
Obviously, Roy Day produced it.
who was that on harmonica?
Mickey Raphael.
Yeah, we like him. I feel like we've talked about this a while back on another album, but between him and Charlie McCoy, those are the two frequently the people I think of as appearing on albums and playing really good harmonica. I mean, of course, DeFord Bailey, but I don't think of him as he wasn't a session guy like these other two were.
No, I like Mickey Raphael. He's great. I mean, I'm a little partial to Charlie, but I mean, it's another album of a lot of the same people and some big time players. You know, we got Reggie Young on here again, Harold Bradley, Chip Young, Matt Gaden, we'll talk about. Jim Isbell, I mean, Ken Buttery, it's Weldon Merrick, Pete Drake, all these guys. Just another insane group of musicians to credit this album.
I will say there are some other vocalists that aren't listed in the drop down in the musicians list. Like I actually had written in my notes originally that this was the first one of his that didn't have the Jordanaires, but it looks like they are credited on 10 years of this, interestingly enough.
Oh, interesting. I didn't notice that. But I
Yeah,
do
that's the
see, yeah, I do see that. So they must have just been on that. And as we talked about, Emmylou Harris, Rodney Crowell, and Nicolette Larson. Yeah, it also says that Lee Jane Baronetti's on 10 years of this as well.
Yep. Yep. So I guess we had a little carryover. I wonder if they recorded that at a different time or they just got the old crew back together for that one.
We'll talk about that.
Indeed.
I'll read Jimmy's write up about the record because I think it's really great in the book. And he said, the songs in Your Place Are Mine hung together in a way that was unusual for an RCA country record at the time. It came at you like a beer stained telegraph from a honky tonk foxhole. And the cover was just fabulous. An action shot of Gary in long leather coat, his brown wood finish 1959 Les Paul Jr. TV model slung across his chest as he's caught mid chord in guitar face ecstasy, standing against a black background with faux stars that ridiculously ornate Gary Stewart logo above it all. He even gets to wear his damn hat on the cover. The vibe was as 70s as Baby I'ma Want You or Muskrat Love. Glorious. Stewart and Day had some triumphs left, but as far as albums go, Your Place or Mine is the pinnacle. This is an album that sounds best blasting from an old jalopy as you tear down some dark country road, feeling no pain with a lusty companion beside you. Come and get me, coppers. Doesn't that make you want to hear this record?
It should. That's about as, yeah, we're not gonna be able to describe it better than that. Um, oh yeah, the cover is amazing. This is the I have one Gary Stewart shirt. I don't even remember where I bought it, but it's just this. It's the cover for this album, and um, that's the one a while back we talked about. For some reason, people are like, "Oh, is that Robbie Robertson?" I'm like, "No, he never looked nearly as cool as this ever."
No. I love the stepping out cover, but yeah, this is fitting for this album and Gary. It's definitely
Agreed.
a country looking, but it's got that rock and roll flair.
Yeah, it really showcases what you're going to get into on this.
Yeah. So let's dive in. That takes us to track one, which is Your Place or Mine. And this was another one written by Carol Grace Anderson and Mary Beth Anderson with Rory Burke. And I mean, right again, Gary knows with how to kick off an album with that guitar riff and just yeah, this is a all time Gary song here.
Yes, it sure is. You need to open a Gary album. This is a hell of a way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, again, in the chorus, he's just absolutely rocking the way he sings "Your Place or Mine." Um, apparently, this was a song he ended most of his live sets with, right?
I believe so. I want to say that Terry Porter was saying when they would hear this song, whenever it might appear, that was kind of their sign to start getting ready. That things were wrapping up.
Yeah, it's quite funny, and that kicks off this album. But from what I remember in the book, this was usually the last. I think it was this one. There was this one he would end with a lot, and I want to say maybe Empty Glass. A lot of bars would play at closing time. And maybe not even Gary, but just Honky Tonks in Texas and stuff would just play that song.
Yeah, you talk about that. I mean, that we don't, we'll have, I think at some point maybe we'll do an episode and just talk about some of the footage that is out there of Gary playing live. But I was watching, and I know you've seen it. It purports to be the last recording of him playing in a bar in Florida. But that's the last song they're doing is an empty glass, and it's you don't realize how like that's a heavy song to close on. I guess if you want to close the bar down, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, Your Place or Mine's definitely one to end the set with and close the bar down. It's a little risque, and where are we going when we leave this? Your place or mine. But Empty Glass, yeah, that's a little more. At least Your Place or Mine, you got someone with you. You got a companion. Empty Glass, you're closing the bar down by yourself. And yeah, that show a couple weeks, man, it might have been a couple days before Gary passed. Pineapple Joe's is
Yep.
online, and that is the last song he ever played live. Maybe the last
Yeah.
song he ever played. Um,
That's a heavy watch, to be honest. I'm glad it's there because it's something to behold, but yeah, that's a harder one to see. But yeah, this song, Your Place or Mine, yeah, I mean the line, yeah, all honey, I'm not pretending. Here's my bottom line. Where are we going? Your place or mine? And Gary's just throughout this whole record, but this song in particular, just like howling the lyrics. Um, it it's we were talking about on the last album, some of the songs felt like unfiltered Gary. Well, you get all of that here.
oh yeah, I agree. But that takes us to track two, which is Rachel, and this is written by Rodney Crowell. This kind of it follows this funny line of a bunch of name songs we get on these two albums that we've talked about, and this one's up there. I think this one reminds me a little bit Trudy, but just another really great rocking song we get from Gary here.
Yeah, big time. And this one, you got Gary, Emmy Lou, and Rodney Crowell singing on it. So I mean, that's a dream alone in and of itself. And I mentioned this at the start, but this is kind of smack dab in the middle of the exploding outlaw movement in country, and I think you really feel that. I mean, you didn't need an outlaw movement to make Gary fit in with the outlaws. I think he checked that box just fine. But his music sure fit right into that sort of vibe and feel. And this album feels the production alone feels very different from the last two in that a lot of it feels, I know they weren't mixing it live, but it has the feel of a live performance on a lot of these songs.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and this has Rodney Crowell wrote this song. It's got Guy Clark with a song on here. We got Willie Nelson. And it seems like they were acknowledging that and playing into that. And, as far as all those people, Gary was probably the one living the most outlaw honky tonk lifestyle of any of them. And even along this time, it talks in the book, they did a big show for RCA that was Waylon and Willie and Gary Stewart. And Bob Melton talks about it in the book that, they could have played those gigs all the time, but Gary had no interest. He wanted to play where the stage was right there amongst the crowd and he could reach out and touch people, and like I mentioned earlier, see him dance, and he wanted to be part of it. He didn't really care about some big fame or some big show playing for people that may or may not be into it. He just wanted to play live. And um yeah, I don't know, if when you're listening to this album, it feels like this would have been right around the time as the Outlaw album with Waylon and Willie. And I don't really know, I bet, especially talking about the next album, if when we get to it, or if we talk about it, it's interesting that they didn't play into that more.
Yeah, feels like a lost opportunity in many ways, but yeah, it's interesting you say that. I mean, this is to me a honky tonk record, in every way, in every form. And uh, Jimmy mentioned this, and I believe it is in the book, but that when he was playing with the Pridesmen, Charlie Pride's band, that I guess the title of the book comes from a moment where, he didn't like that he was so separated from the crowd, like you mentioned. And Gary came out onto the stage and said, "I'm Gary Stewart, and I am from the Honky Tonks." He said it himself. So, um, yeah, I mean, he wanted to play divey places and broken down bars, and they talked about. I believe they might have been talking about. It wasn't the merry-go-round. It was another place where Bob said it wasn't that people were shooting each other inside, but there would frequently be gunfire outside of the venue, and they'd have to hunker down until the right moment to leave once the gunfire settled down. I was out in Florida.
Oh yeah, and it talks about the one place in Pikeville, Kentucky, what the bar owner pulled a gun on David Allan Coe. And I think if you've seen the Blues Brothers, just picture that honky tonk they play in, and that was probably similar to where Gary was at. And I mean,
We'll come back to that. I mentioned that later in
oh
one of the other
really?
songs. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, that was Gary's element. And he loved it, but those people loved him. And I mean, he was packing them until his death. I think it's, Jimmy's talked about it a lot, and I think it's something that a lot of people, I mean, we had no idea. I was young, but even up to until his death, he was playing honky tonks in Texas that could hold several thousand people and selling them out. Even then, years and
yeah,
years after even releasing any music, that's how good Gary was.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Well, this song in particular, I won't say too much more about it, but it's one of three Rodney Crowell pen tracks on the record, and what a combo! I mean, you and I have talked about this. I don't, I like Rodney Crowell quite a bit, but as a songwriter, I like him a whole lot. And you pair a Rodney Crowell song with Gary Stewart, you've got a recipe for success, as we will find out on this album. But yeah, you got Mickey Raphael on this harmonica on there, and I mean, really good stuff. I'm assuming it's the split pedal. I don't know who's playing the pedal steel on this. It's either Weldon Myrick, Pete Drake, or Leo LeBlanc, but it's good no matter which one it is. And I mean, just imagine you're at the honky tonk, you put a quarter in the jukebox, and you're playing some pool, and this song's playing. I mean, Rachel taught me things I guess I had never known, like how this world is run on pride. If you can't see yourself with nothing on, you got nothing left to hide. Whew.
Yeah, and Jimmy states that this song was one of the better ones live, and unfortunately, I cannot find a trace of a live version of it. I'm sure there's some out there somewhere, but not for me to find. And definitely when he was playing with Rockfish at this time, they didn't have a pedal steel player, so it would have been interesting to see a lot of these songs with what seemingly was a more rock and roll approach to a live set.
You think maybe that somebody was doing like a slide or something, or to kind of supplement that?
From what I can gather, no. I mean, I think it even mentions that some of these were like country AC/DC or in like ZZ Top kind of stuff.
Yeah, that tracks. I could see that actually.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe Gary did some, but I don't. I don't really know. He also was in a quite a bit of different iterations of live bands as well. So at different times they had different instruments and lineups. But I know this time I don't think they had a pedal steel. Maybe they did, but I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, that sort of style, that hard rock and style, it's probably a good time to talk about the next song, right? Because it sort of fits into that.
Yeah, and that's track 3, which is Leah. We got another name song. This is written by Jack Skinner, and Gary learned this song from the Rockfish Railroad, and according to the book, it was a live standard as well for Gary.
Yeah, and as is typical for Gary, we had a hard time finding footage of him doing it, but turns out there is footage out there, at least of him doing it one time, and pretty damn good, isn't it?
Yeah, there is. If you go to YouTube, I can link in the Substack as well. There is a 1982 July 3rd. It would have been Gillies like 4th of July weekend they did, I guess, back in the 80s where they had tons of people play. And there's a lot of really high quality footage of some of the performances. There's a David Allen Cohen. I've seen a couple others, but yeah, in that video, it's Gary and Dean Dillon with the Tillman brothers backing, and they say they're the shin kickers in that. But there is near the end, he plays Aaliyah and Your Place or Mine, and that's another set where they didn't have a pedal steel player, and it's really good. I mean, Gary goes through a lot of different songs. It's like a 58-minute set, and it's definitely one of the best live things of Gary, and it's really good. I recommend watching it.
Yeah, and that feeds into what we were talking about, that I'm not surprised this was a staple. I mean, Gary's like damn near screaming Birmingham when he's singing it, and I mean, my initial thought, I think I texted you this when I was revisiting this album. I was like, it feels like the singing is a little bit different on this, like Gary's vocal style, but it feels like what you see when he's singing live, really, from the videos that we have out there. So, yeah, it feels different. Sounds like Gary. They didn't try to, studio it up. I mean, it's a studio album, but nonetheless, it feels like they really captured the chaotic energy that he could bring and his sort of singular way of singing and working his way through a song. And I gotta say too, the guitar parts on this song are really screeching hot. I like that quite a bit on here.
Oh yeah, this sounds like Gary. I mean, we RCA got their drinking songs, but as we'll talk about, those weren't the hits off this. And um, yeah, Rachel, Leah, just two awesome name songs, and we had Trudy. I think on the Central Greatest Hits, those are maybe all in a row, which is funny, but every one of them is equally rocking and equally good.
Yeah, and I like Nicolette Larson's vocals on this too. I gotta say, I know her most prominently for doing background vocals with Neil Young. Um, she was on Comes a Time. She was on more than just that, I think, right? I mean, we don't get have to get into Neil Young, but just for my context of how I know Nicolette.
I can't remember, but she sang a lot of love and had a hit with that, the cover of Neil Young. But that was actually after this album.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad she's on it, and they really seems like again, I don't know how much a hand Roy Day had in the everything about this album, but he seems to have had quite a mark on all of them, and this is the backing vocals are just right with Gary on this.
Yeah, I would say this is maybe his best production on Gary. But that takes us into track 4, which is Drinking Again. So here RCA got their drinking song, and this is written by Claude Southill and Jack Schneider. And this is a song that dates back to 1966 during Gary's days at Cedarwood Publishing, which was Mel Tillis's publishing studio. And Jimmy states in the book, the mere mention of the recording made Gary cringe as he felt his singing was off key. He actually insisted on recutting the vocal after the album came out, but it remains unreleased. I've never heard it. So I didn't notice. I mean, this is a nice slow honky tonk waltz number. I have a hard time hearing what Gary's talking about, but if there's a recorded version that's even better than his performance on this, I would like to hear it because I mean his vibrato is really good on the song. I would say this is maybe my least favorite song on the album, and it's still like awesome.
Yeah, I kind of felt like if you had kept going at the pace that we were going with this album, it would have gone off the rails. You'd have blown the roof off the venue already.
Yeah.
So just like at first I thought, oh, like a live performance, maybe you just need sort of a low tempo affair to get a breather, but there's really nothing about these vocals that are a breather. The vibrato and Gary's style on this would not be an easy song to sing at all for anyone.
No, not at all. And I mean, again, this is a song that would have been all right for anyone else, but with Gary singing it, it's like another great song. So
Yeah, it gave me Tom Waits vibes a little bit, which was kind of a weird thing. And then I was like, oh man, can Gary Stewart? I wish he could have covered some Tom Waits songs. I would have liked to seen him do his touch on that, but oh, just something we must dream about, I suppose.
yeah, just like for whatever reason, Gary wanted to cover Black Sabbath's Changes right before he died. That was something he was wanting to work on. And where he came with that cover, I don't know, but that just kind of shows you, Gary.
Well, I would have liked to hear that too.
Yeah, another thing lost the time. But that takes us to track five, which we got another drinking song, The Blue Ribbon Blues, which is written by James A. Rushing and Wayland Holyfield. And Gary had been doing this song live since 1975, apparently. And Wayne Holyfield, funny enough, he also wrote Rednecks, White Sox, and Blue Ribbon Beer, which Gary recorded and has never seen the light of the day. Where is this tape? Does RCA have it? I really need to hear it. And this one we have Mickey Raphael on a harmonica here. I thought it sounded like countrified J.J. Kell, and man, I love Gary laughing during the slide solo. This just sounds so loose and just, man, what a track. This is really one of the better ones. Woe is me when I'm drinking, trying to draw on a memory of you. Woe is me when I'm sinking with a case of the blue ribbon blues.
Well,
Wayne
speaking of,
Hollyfield, he must have loved the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
yeah, you don't say. I might have gotten myself a Pabst Blue Ribbon just for this occasion. Um, Oh boy, yeah. I mean, I think you were spot on about the J.J. Cale feel. I listened to this and I actually went back and listened to I was like, what does this remind me of? And it gives me the same shuffle feel as Crazy Mama. Crazy Mama's much slower than this, but they have that sort of vibe, so I can totally see it. And yes, that laugh, I don't want to keep leaning on this too much, but it is something I really took away from this record. Like that again makes it feel like a live performance. A lot of times you might cut that out of a performance or something, but he's laughing at to me anyway, I can't speak for what he was actually feeling in that moment, but it feels like a damn, we nailed that sort of laugh. Just sort of like hearing the sound of it and hearing the song going the way that it was going. I mean, oh boy. And yeah, give me that Mickey Raphael harmonica intro all day long. We got the boogie going on this one.
Oh yeah, this song's killer. I mean, he's just having fun. You can hear it. I mean, this song's fun and it's better than Rednecks, White Sox, and Blue Ribbon Beer, which I like. Johnny Russell's version is great. And I love to hear Gary's, but this song rules. And we'll talk a little bit more about the JJ Kill and why that sounds that way after I put some more thought and looking into this album. That actually makes more sense to me. But yeah, this song is just, man. I think this was the first one where I'm like, God, I list this one over and over. And man, he's just having a good time, and you can feel it. And it does sound like the live stuff I've heard where he's goofing and he'll make flubs and laugh about it, and like it is. Gary had fun when he was playing music. You could tell, and I mean, even Jimmy talked about it when he first met. He said Gary got as close to him as he could and played like sets of music just for Jimmy, and it was like it was the last or most important gig he'd ever played. Like he lived for it, and you can hear it in this song.
Oh yeah. The chorus is honky tonkin in a nutshell too. I mean, this is just the shit you want to hear in a dark place with low ceilings and neon lights and just everything in between. I mean, it's if you got the blue ribbon blues, this song might heal it a little bit. Um, it's funny you pulled out that those two lines from the song because I pulled out the same too, thinking, man, I love that. It's just, oh boy. I mean, I can't really conjure up a more like rootin' tootin' just sort of I would it's a lot of these songs can be real sad, and some of the ones we're gonna get to come are, but this is just kind of a drinking song and maybe the best drinking song of all.
It might be of Gary's, honestly. I mean, there are a lot more well-known ones, but yeah, I mean, woe is me when I'm drinking, trying to drown the memory of you. I mean, that's pretty brilliant writing.
Yes, it really is. You think Frank Booth would have been a fan of this song, I think.
I think so. I think him and Wayne Hollifield might have been the same person.
Yeah, they might have been.
uh, all right, but anyways, that takes us to track six, "Pretend I Never Happened." And as you were talking about, we got a lot of our Austin periphery guys here. Willie Nelson obviously wrote this one, and this is easily one of my favorite country songs ever. Every version's great. I think Waylon's was in 71. You got Willie's version, Gary's. This is the best version, however. I've listened to each one a million times, and I think Gary's is the one that kind of seeps through for me, that it's just like amazing, honest. It's very believable that he's singing these lyrics. And, I guess something I've never mentioned is that the intro music is from my country album, not to self promote too much, but on that album, I also recorded a version of this song, and I added mandolin after hearing Gary's version of this because it sounds awesome. And this one is actually cut in 1975, and it was cut on the same day as Easy People and Trudy. And in the book, Steve Henson said that's when you could tell he was from Kentucky. He had that mountain soul. He could sing higher than anyone I ever knew. It also states columnist Hank Beach, who recorded with Stewart and wrote with Stewart, said Gary could sing high tenor to Bill Monroe, and you would never see a vein in his neck stick out or his face turn red. And I agree. This is another bluegrass one like Easy People that man, we keep going here.
Yeah. I feel like I saw you play this song, or I remember you doing a version of it too, and I know you're real fond of it. So to hear you say, Gary's being the best, well, I happen to agree. And it's interesting. It's a pretty faithful, fairly faithful cover of the Willie song. It's not they don't change a ton here. Buck White on the mandolin is perfect. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I could probably listen to Gary do a whole album of Willie covers if he ever had wanted to do so. But he did so much interesting stuff. I don't know that that would have been necessary. But I think is this the second Willie song we've heard him cover? Both have been really good.
Yeah, and I think they were both from the same album. Both
They
are
were,
from
yeah,
Phases of Stages, which is my favorite Willie album.
yeah, yeah. That's the best. Really, I mean, my favorite as well. I hesitate to say the best, but I happen to feel it is.
And I'm pretty sure the Waylon version's on Dream in My Dreams, which we had talked about. I think it was Hogan that did the artwork for Stepping Out. And
Uh-huh.
so
That's right.
just
Yeah.
more weird connections. And I mean, that all these artists were on RCA at the time as well, which is something that is easy to forget because unfortunately, Willie and Waylon had that creative control, which made the outlaw mute movement, and Gary was not being given that for whatever reason, but probably a bit of RCA's fault and Gary probably not really caring, but uh, yeah, great song. It's more upbeat than their versions, and as we'll talk about a little bit more, I mean, every time Gary covered a song, he did it better.
Yeah, that's I don't know that there's I'm not even sure that that's a controversial opinion. I mean, I think if people have heard the Gary versions of these songs, they know that that's true. That it's just it goes along with what people said about him. I mean, he brought to his live music and performances and even the album versions of his songs, he brought something that just nobody else really ever very few people ever came close to bringing what he brought to these songs.
For sure. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm going to come back to that, but that takes us to track 7, which is I Had to Get Drunk Last Night. And this is another one written by Rodney Crowell. And Jimmy said he wasn't hooked on Gary after hearing this. This was the first song that he heard of Gary Stewart, his friend in the, I think was it the Gizmos? Was that the name of the band? Played it for him, and he said it sounded a
Yeah.
little too Nashville, but at some Gary's voice kind of struck him, and he was curious, and he could see it was a great country song. But I mean, as someone like me that is obsessed with country, it gets stuck in my head maybe the most of any off this album randomly. And I had to get drunk last night when I should have been sleeping with you. I think this is great songwriting by Rodney here, and I mean he's one of the best songwriters, and this is a great song.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, that's right. As a matter of fact, the fellow from the Gizmos was in the audience at that Country Music Hall of Fame event.
Oh
And
wow.
when Jimmy was telling that story, he had him was looking for him out in the crowd, and he was sitting kind of close to me, so that was kind of neat. 'Cause, and I don't know. It's like when you hear a story about like someone like Gary Stewart, and you read that book, it feels otherworldly. I mean, truly, like I don't. It doesn't feel like it's something that could have happened or that Gary could have been a real person, but he sure was, and all those people were kind of there talking about him. So I thought that was cool. But um, yeah, this song here, you mentioned the Blues Brothers thing earlier. I had written the same thing. I said, I imagine a scene not unlike the bar room in the Blues Brothers, the honky tonk there, where I could hear the chorus with Sue Richards and Jerry Wallace back in Gary. I could see them playing it, and I could see a big room of like roughneck guys getting real ornery, but and ready for a fight. But instead, they're singing this one in unison. I think what does that happen on the Blues Brothers when they play "Stand by Your Man"? They're all kind of like
Yeah,
swaying and
yeah.
like I can see that happening with this song.
Yeah, and speaking of weird, I was getting coffee with my friend today, and she's reading her book and was showing me it said Tammy Wynette. And odd enough, I was reading that article you sent to me about Jimmy and the ghost of, it was about what you're just talking about, how this has followed him. And right there is Tammy Wynette. And she shows me that. And I show, look, here's Tammy Wynette right here. And on my way after that, I was driving in my car listening to Gary and there are Florida plates pull up next to me. And yeah, I don't know, man. This feels personal. I don't know. I didn't obviously didn't know Gary, but there's something else feels otherworldly about him to me. And it just seems like I have some bizarre connection. My friend calls me a witch, and sometimes that maybe I'm the country witch. I'm summoning these spirits of these people. But yeah, this is a great song. I don't want to go off on some random tangent here, but I feel connected to Gary very much, and that was very cool. You said that guy was there. I mean, without that guy, Jimmy would have never heard of Gary, and he wouldn't have gone to that New York show and seen Gary there, which
Yeah.
spurred all this.
Well, it's sort of how it goes a lot of times when you've got buddies who love music. And I know more than once, I'd say more often than not, I'm gonna give you a lot of credit here and say you turned me on to a lot of bands and artists that I didn't know about, especially in the world of country. And I always appreciate that. And, you just never know where it's going to take you. And sometimes you hear of somebody like that and somebody just casually mentions it and you get stuck on it. And lo and behold, you write a 500-page book like Jimmy did. And thank God for it. But yeah, this song is, oh boy. I mean, there's a real implication in the choice of saying the word had here. When you had to get drunk last night, whew, that's a kind of drinking that takes on a little bit of a darker connotation. And you're in the damn honky tonk at this point, when you're hearing this. And the final verse is the song sounds fun. And I know I mentioned, I put that image out there, people kind of swaying and singing the chorus together, but the final verse. Now, I ain't ever been too good at doing the things I know I should. And I know I should make myself go home, but I drank to a memory what never was and will never be. I don't feel no changes coming on when I'm drinking. I don't notice that you're gone. Now I know that fools are born, they are made. Now, but you have made the biggest fool today. Woo, woo.
Yeah, this is great writing. I mean, I'm glad they chose some of these songs with Rodney Crowell and stuff to supplement Gary's songs because they really fit Gary.
Big time.
All right, so that takes us to track 8, which is another Rodney Crowell song, and one people might be familiar with as well. I Ain't Living Long Like This. And all right, and so we were talking about covers and things, songs that Gary had covered, and Jimmy mentions in the book that the song had been recorded by Emmylou Harris, Waylon Jennings, who had a number one country hit with it, and its author. None come within a country mile of Stewart. He's the only one who sounds like an actual criminal, unrepentant, on the lam and shouting, "Come and get me, coppers." Plus, it features knockout guitar of singer-songwriter Mac Gaden, famous for his wah-wah slide on J.J. Kell's Crazy Mama, whose rambunctious, vibrating accompaniment of Ain't Living Long sounds like the squall of a squad car in hot pursuit. It's hard to pin down what's more exciting, Gary's vocal, Gaden's guitar, or the dynamic way they drive each other.
Well,
So
there it
now
is.
we
There's your connection.
now we understand why the slide guitar on this album sounds like J.J. Kell.
Yep, that'll do it. Same fella doing the parts. Um, yeah, you tell me if there's a better version because I sure don't think so. And I know Waylon's version went number one, and Josh, you and I both really adore Waylon Jennings. I mean, how can you not? Um, but yeah, that's another thing during the talk yesterday at the Country Music Hall of Fame. Shannon said, "This is the version of that song. There isn't a better version." Kind of hard to disagree.
Oh, did she talk about the song at the
Briefly, she was sort of mentioning some of the songs that I don't really remember exactly what the question or lead in, but she was mentioning a handful of Gary's songs and said, he did a version of Ain't Living Long Like This that's really the definitive version, the best version. And, she said a few times, like, I'm not just saying this because he was my dad. Like, Gary just really was such a special performer, and there's just so few people who ever did songs the way that he did. And yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, he he can lend a credibility to this song that I'm not sure. I mean, Waylon's version is great. Don't get me wrong. It went to number one. I love that song. I love his version of it. I really like Rodney Crowell's version of it too. But it's another one of those things. If I can hear Gary sing it, I'm gonna pick that version.
Yeah, and you mentioned that. That's interesting. She talked about that. And I'm a huge Waylon stan. I mean, he's one of my favorites. Top top 3 or 5 for me in country music. And but I agree. I mean, sadly both of them died way too young, like a year apart, but Gary sings this song like he means it, and it's another one that kind of sounds like it's going to run off the rails. And yeah, Waylon's version's great. That's probably the one. Unfortunately, that's probably the one most people know, especially as a number one hit. But yeah, you're right. And Jimmy's right. And like Gary's version is the best. And here we go
I think
again.
I believe he cut it before the others as well.
He did.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the end all really in that sense as well. But yeah, I mean, if you every story you hear about Gary playing live and tales in the books, and they talked about this at the event, but it's just Gary would blow the roof off any joint he played, and I can imagine this one being a great, final straw. Like you really want to raise that decibel level and get everybody up and dancing and getting rowdy. This one would do the trick.
Yeah, I wonder if you ever played this one live. Well, I could see either way. I could see him playing it live or not, because yeah, you never know. But to continue that theme, that takes us to track nine, Broken-Hearted People. Take Me to a Bar Room. And this was written by Guy Clark's, another one of those great Texas songwriters. And this one's off my favorite Guy Clark album, which Texas Cook, and it has one of my favorite songs ever, Anyhow I Love You. And in the book, Jimmy says, once again, exhibits how adept Stewart was at covering a song and making it his own. Written by Guy Clark, the song boils a honky tonk ethos down to a few very painful lines. Take me to a barroom, driver, set me on a stool. If I can't be her man, I'm damned if I'll be her fool. There are those who argue Clark's original is better cut, many of them displeased with Stewart's up-tempo, vibrato-laden delivery.
Who would be displeased about that?
I don't know. Have you heard Clark's version?
No, and it's funny when I wrote this. I also quite enjoy Guy Clark, but I'm not a super fan, admittedly. So I don't know as much as I do about some of these Gary albums or some of these other artists we talk about, and that's fine. But when I was writing my notes about this, I actually wrote that I felt like a more of a Texas style rocker, and said maybe there's some Jerry Jeff Walker vibes here. Well, it makes sense if Guy Clark is the one who penned it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, Guy Clark's another one of my favorite writers, and there's another version that I had mentioned Steve Young on last week's podcast where I had that Renegade Picker album on my turntable, and funny enough, this song's also on his album, and his version's kind of in between the two. It's a little slower, but more soulful and painful in his voice, and that album was also produced by Roy Day, so that kind of makes sense. That Steve Young's someone I want to talk about because I kind of put him in a similar vein as Gary, not as like important to me, but one of my favorites. And it says in the book, Jimmy stated, not being an aficionado of Clark's, I asked musician John Kopf what he thought. I'm a big Guy Clark fan. I have all of his stuff, seen him many times, and also have heard many covers of his songs. This is the only time a cover of his work was better than the original, and I'm including some heavy hitters like Willie, Cash, and David Allan Coe. Guy came up with the bones of the song. Gary put the flesh on it. Cop puts it, Guy's version was I'm heartbroken, I'm drunk. Gary's is I'm heartbroken, I'm drunk, and I'm gonna go get some pussy.
Oh man. Hey,
Those are
I will
not
say
my words.
no, no. I will say, well, he's not wrong that that's sort of how a lot of these Gary songs kind of come off too. But I will say, eh, there was one other example of in my opinion, something that it was a Guy Clark song that was done better by cover, and that's probably L.A. Freeway. But that's just my opinion because I really like the Jerry Jeff Walker version of that song. But both are quite good.
I like Guy's version, but I digress. But something else interesting on this, which on the Steve Young and Guy Clark's versions, they both say I'm looking to get silly, but Gary personally changed that line to I'm looking to get sloppy drunk.
Well, I suppose if you're putting a parenthetical "take me to a bar room" in your song title, yeah, that's what you're doing there. Um, I love a song with parentheses like that, and to put that in there, "broken-hearted people, take me to a bar room." Yeah, it's amazing. Booze wasn't really Gary's poison of choice because well, he could sure sell that it was.
Yeah, it even talks in the book. There's a funny story about one of these bands he'd started playing with around this time. Gary ordered a bunch of cases of beer up to the stage to do a beer drinking contest at some show there. And people were so just enthralled. I mean, I can't imagine seeing him. It just sounds like absolute madness in the best way possible.
Yeah, yeah, truly. And this song is it's a little bit of a different vibe than some of the other ones, but again, I could see all these in a set together as like in a honky tonk setting. They would all work
Yeah, this is definitely a downer song, but it's again, yeah, Gary just makes it his own.
big time.
But anyways, that takes us to track 10, and funny enough, that's called 10 Years of This, and this was written by Gary Stewart and our old friend Wayne Carson. This track reached number 16 on the US country charts, and you know, old Bob Dylan said this track casted a spell over him and he listened to it over and over. This song was recorded the same day as Your Place or Mine, and it was a second single off the album. In the book, it says Stewart co wrote this unbelievably intense examination of marital despair with Wayne Carson, exchanging lyrics in the mail. There are so many thrills of this song, this performance, this lyric. Where do I begin? How about the killer opening? The song deceives you with its peppy up tempo intro before Stewart swoops in, already sounding on the verge of a breakdown. You never know by looking. We were ever more than strangers, but we're celebrating 10 years of wedded bliss, he sings, hissing out the last 2 years. Already, you know the sad couple coming and going in the night, not uttering a word to each other. She made the rounds as usual, while I sit here stoned as usual, so conventional. Oh, so conversational, so real, so much pain.
Mm. Yes. Well, I can agree with Mr. Bob Dylan that it would cast a spell over you. Is there a sadder Gary? Bleh. I'm not sure there's a sadder Gary Stewart song than this.
I'm not sure there's a sadder song ever made.
No, it would be up there, and hearing Gary sing it, I can't color in that maybe he was writing anything biographical, but knowing what I know from the book now, mm, it's possible.
I would say it is. I mean, as we at the top of the podcast, they were kind of going through a divorce that didn't finalize at the time, and I would say this one's pretty spot on. I mean, it even says in the book, a sense of doom permeates the track. It's jumpy tempo, only notching up the tension. You actually feel Stewart might explode before the song was over, but it wouldn't be a woman on his mind when he sang the song out on the road. He confided to his friend Joanne Gregory that when he performed it live, he always thought about his relationship with RCA. So,
Mm.
yeah, it could be, a bit of everything there.
Yeah, 10 years is an interesting time frame to pick too. I ever heard people used to say Nashville's a 10-year town, 10 years, just a decade, nice and clean, like it's a certain amount of time, I guess that boy, I don't know, you can get burnt out in that decade, that 10 years, and sometimes you say, I don't know if you could make it through another 10 years of this. I mean, that's a tough one there to think about what he's saying in this song. And I saw this all. I don't remember what I was trying to find about Gary, but I found this old Reddit thread where people were talking about Gary Stewart, and someone was saying, part of what they felt maybe kept Gary's songs from taking off, in some of the ways that other songs of the time did, is that like Gary's songs were unique is that the men in the songs were often vulnerable. They weren't like going out and shooting their exes or sort of hiding their outrage under veils. And I agree with the gist of that. I mean, I look at this song here. It's a very vulnerable song.
Which is interesting you mention that because I said something I've always found amazing in the song, which he rhymes as usual with as usual, and I don't know anyone bold enough to do that where it worked. And it's funny because even Bob Dylan was obsessed with the song, and that just backs up that as good as Gary was at covering, he was an underrated songwriter. But Jimmy states in the book that then comes the classic tortured country syntax. If someone else would tell me what I already know in my mind, I'm afraid I'd start talking with my fist. His vocal snakes around the tricky wordplay, making it seem not laborious but necessary. There in the middle of it all comes a line of aching tenderness. Maybe you felt cheated because you married so young. Such empathy might be expected from, say, Loretta Lynn, but a honky tonk man, breathtaking. And it plunges right back to increasing desperation. What in hell kept us together for 10 years of this? Note the us, not me. It's not accusatory. It's how did we end up here? Gary and Lou had been married well past a decade. Ah, Gary and Lou had been married well past a decade, and this wedded bliss had already circled the drain at least once. So, I mean, what you're saying that also encapsulates it there. Gary really did have a way of, and he seemed like a very like sensitive, emotionally like aware person reading this
Maybe
book.
that might have been Jimmy's account that posted that, yeah, on Reddit. Because yes, it was to kind of point out the similar sentiment. No, it's true though. It's unique in his way, and I agree. I oftentimes on a lot of these songs that we've uh oftentimes on a lot of these albums that we've covered, some of the best songs are the ones that Gary had a hand in writing. So, and of course, he had written songs before he started doing these albums that he became known for too. And boy, he was just a good songwriter. This one is one of the more painful songs I can think of, and you feel that he means what he's saying.
I would say Gary's best songs are the ones he wrote. And I was listening to one by Nat Stuckey he wrote earlier. That was great. And I have to look the name up again, but um like Empty Glass, the 10 years of this. I would say 10 years of this is his best song ever.
Yeah, I'd have a hard time disagreeing with that. Yeah, I remember when we pulled this album to start thinking about it, and I looked at the track list and I was like, oh boy, here we're gonna have to talk about 10 years of this. There's really nothing we can say that would ever sum up what this song accomplishes, and it goes beyond just country music too. It's just a again, I could see where Bob Dylan might feel really taken by it because there's a lot of vulnerability in the people of Bob Dylan songs, but it's always sort of veiled in its way. I don't think there's a lot of directness in his music necessarily. Um, and this is a very direct song. I don't really think it's trying to dance around what it's saying.
No, and I want to read a little bit else about this in the book just because this song's so important, I think. And, we've talked about how this album's so loose and stuff, and it sums the rest of this up. It's a little long, but I want to read this. It says 10 years of this does not feel good loose like many other Stewart tracks. It's tightly wound, tense as the vocal, and doesn't relent, right up till its bug against the windshield climax. One can't discuss the recording without mentioning a couple of the pickers present. Pete Drake's steel guitar dips and dives lick for lick with Gary's vocal, gliding the lily perfectly. Then there's that electric guitar. Dell Sellers, man, said Steve Henson. That's a tour de force for him. The guitar part that follows Stewart singing A Million Nights Alone became known as a Dell Sellers lick and had pickers in a frenzy trying to figure it out. Henson remembers hearing 10 years of this after playing a show with Cliff Parker, guitarist on Johnny Paycheck's Take This Job and Shove It. It was late at night, the gig's over, and we're standing on the stage. They're closing up, wiping off the tables, and we're handing the guitar back and forth, going, No, I think it's more like this. The guitar part is otherworldly, according to Sellers. It was done in one take, utilizing a Telecaster with two strings bent at once against a stationary string on the fret. It was a push and pull type lick. Both guitars, electric and steel, complement each other beautifully as was the style for Drake and Sellers on Stewart's work. You might say I'm a frustrated still player, said Dell. I don't know shit about them, but I always like the licks and the sound they got. Yeah. Um, I think that was great insight into the song and talks about like not only was Gary otherworldly and everything came together on the song. This is yeah, I mean this is music at its finest and like we talk, I mean you and I are both huge Bob Dylan fans and the story of Bob Dylan making Tom Petty drive him to see Gary Stewart in Florida when they're on tour, which for me Tom's up there with Gary almost for me as a important person for me and someone that meant a lot. And I was fortunate to see him play a lot and also died way too young. And yeah, that's a crazy, crazy story. And it shows like I think when people hear Gary, they're just you can't forget it.
No, it's no, that's right. I can see why anyone would be charmed, and I can't imagine hearing this song as the first song. Or I don't know that that's the story that it was the first one Bob heard, but I can't imagine just hearing this at all. And how would you not want to explore more of what this person can give you if you heard this song? Yeah, that's amazing to think about those two going to see him and a
Yeah.
testament to who he was. I have to imagine seeing him was otherworldly in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, if there is a song that you should listen to by Gary Stewart, this is it. Um, I would say, like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of country songs I've heard. A lot of people that I like their songs. Um, a lot that I've heard and think it's a good song. And maybe I remember the song because it's good or whatever. But like Bob, ever since I've heard Gary Stewart, I've been absolutely fixated on his music and wanting to know everything about him because I go down these rabbit holes and like I have never stopped ever since I heard him. And that's why this is so meaningful to me is like I'm still scouring the internet trying to find anything, any fragment of something I've not seen before. And I guess we should talk. It's crazy because we did stepping out last week, and I think we my country witchiness willed RCA to put that and remaster it and put it out on streaming, which is crazy. And
Thank God, yes.
there was another Dean Dillon and Gary Stewart live soundboard recording that popped up on YouTube as well from 1982. I'm hoping this is the just the beginning of the floodgates. It kind of seems like it is, Wes. And Lord help
Yeah.
us, man.
Oh, I keep seeing this sentiment shared across lots. There's a lot of people covering this book right now, which means there's a lot of people talking about Gary Stewart. I think Jimmy McDonough has stated he wants this to, if anything he wants out of this, it's for Gary's name to be better known. Shannon kept saying, she wants to turn this into the campaign to get him into the Country Music Hall of Fame. I want all of that and more. I'm with him on that. Like let's get all the music we can find out there from Gary Stewart and let's let all those things happen. I mean, it's just so cool. I felt so I have not felt something like that in a long time to sit in that room and see people who share a part in this story be so excited about what's happening. And you mentioned it, we didn't know Gary Stewart personally. Um, I wish I had. That would have been cool, but I didn't. I just connect with his music and I see the Kentucky in him and we share that we're both from there and yeah, it was just special. It's a special time to love Gary and I think it's certainly feeling like there's an iceberg and we're about to see a little bit more of it with all the music that could potentially be out there that's just never come out. And yeah, I mean, boy, I just love this song. I don't know what more I can say about it.
I didn't know Gary, but I feel like his spirit's with me. I feel that Kentucky moan every now and then, but yeah, it's cool. I and yeah, I agree. Like he needs to be in the Country Music Hall of Fame because that's like not having the Beatles or the Rolling Stone in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's just ludicrous, and kind of discredits the entire Country Music Hall of Fame, if I'm being honest. But again, that stuff's meaningless in my opinion. He deserves to be in there, but rightfully so. He just deserves to be remembered for his music and the legacy that he was arguably the greatest country musician to ever live, in my opinion. And I think people that have heard him share that sentiment. There's country musicians that, like George Jones and some of the greats that sit with you, but like I said, I've never heard someone cover George Jones and do it any justice. Am I being honest? I know people try to, and they'll say, "Oh, this is good" or whatever. I heard one recently, but yeah, it's never close. But like that live performance I sent you, Gary, he
Hmm.
he kind of blows white lightning out of the water, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, and he does another George Jones song, and he did him better. I don't know how it's possible, but that just shares the sentiment of how amazing I think Gary was. For me to say someone was better than George Jones feels a little blasphemous because I got George Jones on my wall. I mean, but
Yeah,
yeah, I genuinely don't know how anyone was better. But that's my opinion. But I think he will stick with you in some sort of way if you listen to it.
I think so. This song in particular. The only other thing I'll say about this song too is that as I was writing some of my notes for this, I'd originally written that this was the first Gary Stewart album that didn't have the Jordanaires doing any backup vocals. But as it turns out, on 10 years of this, the Jordanaires are there again, and so is Lee Jane Baronetti. So, you know, I feel like they brought out the A-listers for this track.
Yeah, it's uh as perfect as a song gets. But anyways, that takes us to our last track here, which is track 11, Dancing Eyes. And this is another one that Gary wrote. And this sounds like the perfect song to end an album. It's not a slow and it's kind of a rocker and it's nothing like spectacular. You're not gonna follow up with a better song, but it just feels great. And it's like you can just kind of see the party ending and you're just yeah, it makes you sad the album's over. What a perfect ending to a perfect album. I think Robert Christgau, the famous critic for the Village Voice, gave this the best rating of all Gary's albums, and it seems like this is maybe Jimmy's favorite. And um, I actually think it's neck and neck with Stepping Out, and it's funny because everybody knows Out of Hand, but these are like Jimmy said, this is the pinnacle of Gary Stewart, and I think I agree. This is one of the best records I ever heard.
Yep, that's that's damn right. Two scotch and sodas make that a double on mine. Perfect ending to really one of the best Gary records. I could see him like playing this, and I don't know if you got this. It sort of has the feeling of a song where you could start it and then you could say, "Oh, thank you very much," and like one person could walk off the stage and the band could keep like playing it. Like it's a really perfect ending in a lot of ways for what I don't know. I guess I'm gonna stand by what I said that this has the feel of a live show to me, and that's part of what makes it so good. It just feels like you're listening to something that's cohesive. There's ups, there's downs, there's drinking songs, there's sad songs. You just get everything you could really want. I'd go out on a limb and say this is one of the better country albums I've heard, just plain period. And I've heard a little too many maybe, and I sure like this one.
I've heard not enough, but this one is this one, yeah, it's great. It's everything I want in a country album, and um, man, I got nothing else to say. This, please go listen to this album. If anyone in Texas or some person sitting on some Gary Stewart live tape that they don't realize they have that they filmed at a honky tonk back in the 80s or 90s and have any of these live, man, please someone find these. I know they exist. I have so much inclination that there are tapes sitting somewhere that exist and I just put them on. I don't get them to Shannon or put them on YouTube. Like we got an RCA. I know you're not listening to our podcast, but You guys are sitting on a vault of this stuff. Release it. Release it. It needs to come out. You've already
Yes,
done enough disjustice by Gary, by 10 years of this nonsense. You know how we got 50 years. Please do some service and release this stuff for us. I mean, there's a lot of Gary albums still not on streaming. There's a lot of back tapes that you guys have, and uh, it needs to be released.
it does. And I think it will, and we're gonna will it into existence along with everybody else who's talking about Gary right now. And yeah, I mean, I'll say too as a final note, I got nothing else to say about the album other than go listen to it over and over and over again. You won't be disappointed, and I pray we get those. I'm not even a praying man, and I'll pray that we get those. Um, unreleased scary tapes and records and whatever we can get. I'm praying they come out. And yeah, and as a last note, if Jimmy and Shannon and others are coming to your town and they're going to do a couple of different things. They just started out, but if they're coming to an area near you, go see them talk and experience this because it's probably the one of the more special times to be a Gary Stewart fan, and that's a really special thing. It just doesn't happen this way very often, and it speaks to how much people care about his music.
I agree. Definitely look up those tour dates. I know Jimmy's posted them on his social media, or Wolf Simon, Chris Campion. You can find them there. Go see it. Um, buy the book. You will not be displeased. If you don't want to read it, there's an audio book. And yeah, until next time, we're going to keep coming at you. We're not going to let up on Gary Stewart because this is fun. I love talking about this stuff. And I want to keep manifesting and willing this out into the world. And maybe by the time we're done with this, we'll have Gary's Rednecks, White Sox, and Blue Ribbon beer to listen to or something. I don't know. I
I
think we're
hope
gonna
so.
hear that. Yeah. All right. But anyways, this is who's gonna fill their shoes signing off. Adios.
Adios.